Welcome in everybody to the Sideline Fantasy Football Week 1 preview podcast. We're going to try to give you these as weekly as possible. Keep them short and sweet. Going to go over the league stuff that's happened in the week, and this is our first one since the draft. Welcome in, Krim. How you feeling? Football Sunday's approaching. Your shitty Panthers in the background, ready to represent. How you feeling?
Uh, Football wise, decent. Maybe we'll have a decent week one matchup with the Saints, so like maybe we can actually win more than 3 games this year. But I mean, it's a clean slate for everybody. We'll see how things go. The
Not
games
for the
we have
Packers.
seen
It's
have
not a clean
been
slate for them. They're
not
on
for the
one.
Packers, not for not for the Ravens. I mean, those two games we got were pretty solid, and I mean a lot of fantasy implications there for sure. Some good, some very bad. So I'm sure we'll touch upon those things as we get there. But I mean, it's still week one hasn't even really fully begun yet in a sense. Still have so many more games to go, so I'm excited.
And you know what's funny is last year, okay, you know who I drafted as my first quarterback? Aaron Rodgers. Okay. This year, do you know who I drafted as my first quarterback? Jordan
Aaron
Love.
Rodgers backup, yeah.
Isn't
So
that crazy? Like both literally, I mean, I got Caleb Williams. Ride or die now. Here we go. All right.
yeah, hopefully not. So hopefully not the case for Packers fans, but I mean, obviously we'll see.
Yeah. All right. Well, there was a trade since we've last discussed. If you want to quickly go to that before and we're not going to go through super in-depth things. Like I said, we're going to try to keep these weekly shows short and sweet. But obviously, if there's trades, every few weeks we'll probably redo our power rankings, and all that kind of good stuff. But let's dive into the trade that happened since we've been through the draft, and it was deflower more Christians, which is that Kyle, right?
Yeah, it is Kyle.
And he made a trade with Rob, and he sent Aaron Jones and Olave to Rob for Jamar Chase and Jonathan Brooks. Obviously, Jonathan Brooks going to be out the first few weeks. You know that being a Panthers fan, but Jamar Chase going the other way, and then you have Olave and Jones. What did you overall think of this trade? Obviously, we'll look at the matchups in a second, but just quick
Yeah.
reaction to the trade.
I just felt like Aaron Jones. Obviously, I drafted and traded him myself, so I do like Aaron Jones. I just am not a big fan of Olave at all. Not because he's just a Saints receiver, that obviously adds to it, but just as a player and his draft price, I wasn't sold on him myself. So obviously I stayed away from him in every draft that I took part in. But the pieces there, obviously, as any trade Kyle wants to do, Kyle wins this one in a sense, just because you're getting the first round guy. But early on, it could prove decent for Rob, just because if Jamar Chase isn't playing week one or week two or week three or until he gets a contract, who really knows? I don't think they'll be out too long because I feel like they're going to want to get on the field pretty quickly. But not being in practice with Burrow kind of just hasn't had really a camp. I don't know how good Jamar is going to really be. Obviously, he's still Jamar Chase, but on paper, it looks like a steal for Kyle. But realistically, I don't know if it actually was. So I feel like right now I like the Rob side more.
It's going to be interesting because I feel like notoriously the last few years the Bengals have always gotten off to bad starts where they drop like 6-point ball games the first 3 weeks, and Jamar Chase not really being in camp and this and that. I think it could just be that case again for at least a little bit. So I think early this trade actually might do well for Rob, but this is a very easy Kyle trade because Kyle's always been under the mindset get the best player in the trade. And I mean, I do think it's not hard to say that Jamar Chase is the best player in this trade, despite, Aaron Jones and Olave being solid. We don't know what Brooks is going to do. But yeah, Jamar Chase is the best player in this trade. So I definitely see why Kyle did this one. So overall, I think it's a pretty fair trade, but I do see why both teams did it. Rob wasn't there for the draft, maybe wanted a little bit more depth on his team while still having a really good receiver, and then Kyle getting that superstar. So it really does make sense from both sides. So now we're going to kind of go over the matchups real quick. We're going to kind of go through them, maybe look at a couple players we like, a couple players we think might be tough. Obviously, as the weeks go by, we'll look at, the matchup in terms of what it means for the division standings. But right now, it's literally everyone's 0-0, clean slate. So First 5 weeks, as we know, it is the first five, I believe. Yep. First 5 weeks are division matchups all the way through. This first matchup is obviously going to be the one that shows up for you because it's under your profile. So, Jordan versus Jordan matchup week 1. Here we go as we start year 10 of the Sideline Fantasy Football League. And it's already off to a pretty interesting start, 33-32. Projections are staying pretty close. What do you like about let me ask you this. Two players you're worried about on give me a player or two you're worried about on Jordan's team that you think can make a big impact this week that might scare you a bit.
I mean, first things first, it was Barkley, still is Barkley, just
Yeah,
because I mean you're going to score 3 touchdowns in the first game of the season, so
that's a killer.
obviously that's not great. Obviously with the projections being me losing by 7 points, that's
Close.
it's still close. I mean, obviously Mark Andrews doing what he did on Thursday wasn't great, didn't set the tone that
Yeah,
I
are you
kind of wanted
scared?
to.
Are you scared you might have some money out there on something?
No, no, I'm not afraid of it. I've seen it broken down 11 different ways just because everyone seemed to be up in arms about it in a sense. But I'm not concerned about Andrews moving forward. But the big thing here for me on the other side of things, Jonathan Taylor against Houston. I know Houston isn't awful, but I just know that if another running back goes off, it's going to be tough to kind of climb back into the matchup. And I'm thankful that I get to see how things play out and kind of have a chance to know where I stand come Sunday night. I have two guys in that game. Jordan has everybody playing at 1 o'clock outside of DK Metcalf and his defense. So I'll have a good idea of what his team looks like, full fledged. But I'm thankful for Jaden Reed. I'm thankful that he kind of did his thing too, and gave me quite a bit of points, and he matched Saquon. So I, Mark Andrews being a dud kind of sucks, but like, who's to say Kyle Pitts doesn't do the Kyle Pitts thing and also be a dud? So I'm not too concerned still, but obviously, it's very early and we have so much more to play out. So, uh, yeah, I would say JT's the guy that I'm worried about on his end. I don't know how you feel about how this stacks up, but let's hear it.
Yeah, no, I mean that running back, like I said, we said this, on this pre-show or not on the after draft show. Jordan to me is one of the best teams in the league. I mean, his team's loaded, and we're going to see that Saquon. This is obviously he's not going to drop 30 a week, but he's going to be a nasty in that offense. I mean, he just is. If he's healthy, he's one of the most athletic running backs I've ever seen play football. I mean, he just is. He's ridiculous, and so that and Taylor is going to be a really ridiculous combination. It's going to be tough for you to come back in this one, I think. Um, Obviously it's early. Anything can happen week 1. It's tough, but obviously I like his team more than I like your team. I said that after the draft show. So overall, that's where I'm kind of leaning on this one. His receivers though, Kirk and Metcalf, we'll see. Kind of Metcalf going against Denver, Kirk going against Miami. They both could, I think, put up pretty low ball games, which could give you a shot here and get you back in it. And obviously Gibbs is a home run threat. Kyron Williams is going to be a pretty much a workhorse out there. So, like I said, it's week 1. Anything can happen. So, it'll be an interesting one. So we'll see. We'll see. But big week 1 matchup there, Jordan versus Jordan. All right.
Yeah. If you had to pick a winner, though, who do you think takes it home?
I'm gonna say Jordan.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, obviously, again, yeah, the start that I've gone off to isn't great, but we all know that week 1 doesn't it sets the tone, isn't your entire season, and these games, as important as they are, the first 4 weeks, you do play these teams again, so you do have a chance
Yep.
to make right later on in the year. But obviously, it's much better to see a win that in that category after week 1 as opposed to a loss, and it kind of changes things. I mean, people do panic quite a bit once they see that 0-1 on their record. So we'll kind of see how things shake up
That
after
week
that.
1 waiver wire is always a fun one, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's
It's always
always just
it's
crazy.
I mean, you could, yeah. I mean, it is. It is. All right. So let's go to the next matchup. It's going to be Jay and Chad. Again, big division matchup here. All of them will be. But like you said, though, you play. I think is it now you play the 4. You play every team except one in your division twice.
I think so.
Yeah. So I mean, these are like I said, you do get to play these teams against. But Chad obviously off to a little bit of a slower start with Mahomes dropping 14. If you're going to take Mahomes, obviously I think he had him in the 5th or 6th round. You really can't 14 is about as low as you want from Mahomes. I mean, it really is. If you're going to take a quarterback that high, that's tough. So, but obviously, other than that, Devontae Smith played for Jay. Decent start there. I would say projections wise, if you're projected for under 100, that's not awful, but that's I'd say a little bit on the lower end. So both these guys projected for a little bit of lower starts. Chad also had his defense of the Chiefs get him for. Anything stand out here that you're looking for this season that can kind of be something to look out for these two teams?
Yeah. I mean, Jay's off to a decent start. Obviously, projected to score 99.9 points. Um, but I just I can't get over the running back duo he
Yeah.
has with Mostert and Warren. I mean, Mostert in a committee for sure. He might be he's still going to be viable, obviously. Um, but the big thing here on obviously Chad's team has good pieces on it. I think that not a deciding factor, but a very, very interesting thing to look at is that they both have a piece of that backfield in Pittsburgh. Najee Harris is on Chad's team, Jalen Warren is on
Yeah,
Jay's
that'll be
team.
something to pay
You
attention
know
to for
that
sure.
that's something to pay attention to, right? So I mean, if Najee Harris dominates the touches there, that gives Chad an advantage off jump, just because I mean Jalen Warren's not getting in the game. So that's a very big thing there. And I also feel like it helps with Russell Wilson potentially not playing and giving them just Justin Fields as the starter this week. I think that he helps the backfield with his ability to run. So it'll increase both of these guys' effectiveness, but it just depends on who gets the hot hand early. So that'll be interesting to see. Kind of not a boring game, obviously, like Steelers, Falcons. Like that's the kind of game where I feel like it's going to be a grinded out, you know, type of
It's a
game.
good
And
measuring stick game, right? Week one,
yeah,
both those
for
teams are.
sure, for sure, for both those teams. And those two guys are going to be key. And obviously, Chad has Drake London there too. So that's kind of a big game for this matchup in general. But I just, it's, there's something to love about Chad's team. Not much to love about GA's, as we stated that he's one of the worst teams in the league off of our post draft show. So I mean, I feel like even though Mahomes and the Chiefs defense got off to a slower start, Chad still has the edge here. I like what he has upside wise in his side more than anything on Jay's team.
Yeah, I mean, I had Chad as the second best team in the league, but I mean, it really does change a little bit when Mahomes only does get 14. All of a sudden, you're like, oh wow, okay, these guys. But I mean, Amon-Ra, Drake London, Neighbors. He's got Njoku, who had a huge year last year. But obviously, I've never been a big Najee Harris fan, but we'll see what happens. I think you're right. There are some interesting ones there. I think Jay could pull off an upset here because again, Anthony Richardson, again, huge big player this year that we're kind of looking at to see is he going to be a guy that can drop 30, 25, 30 plus a game based on his running abilities. Mozart's a home run threat. Jalen Warren's obviously a pass catcher. So I think there's actually a chance Jay could pull off this upset with the way Mahomes started. I'll be honest. You really don't want to see under 20 from Mahomes on any given week. But again, there's just still a lot of question marks on both teams. Like, how's Neighbors going to look in that offense? How is Nakua going to look in year two? Garrett Wilson with Rodgers finally for the first game. So there's a lot of question marks on both sides. It'll be a fun one to see. Overall, I'm with you though. I think Chad probably takes it. All right. Next matchup, we got your brother, Shop Squad, going against Kyle. Kyle projected for just a little bit of an edge right now in projections. But again, when projections are that close, it really is, I think, a crapshoot at that point. Looking at both these teams, though, Krim, what are some things that stand out? Who do you like?
I mean, first things first, you got to put some respect on the name of Chop Squad, the reigning champion from 2 years ago. So
Can you say the reigning champion from 2
2
years
years
ago?
ago. He did. I mean, he did.
Does that even make sense? I'm the
No,
reigning
not
champion
really.
from 5 years
From
ago,
2 years
dude.
ago. I mean, dude, put some respect on your name too at that point, I guess.
Yeah.
But no, this is an interesting one for me because even just team wise, one's a team with some success in their first playoff appearance. One's a team who makes the playoffs every year and doesn't find success. So as unsexy of a matchup as it looks, just based off teams, I think it's pretty much a tone setter for the season. And I mean, for Kyle, he had a guy on Thursday in Zay Flowers, 8.1, not awful by any means. But he's got some dudes in good spots. I mean, McCaffrey again. It's if you're a McCaffrey guy, it's not great to hear what's coming out with McCaffrey maybe not playing and also maybe playing but not being 100% because that's your biggest fear. You need him to be 100%. You need him to just be, at least 95%. Like if he's dinged up already, for anyone's team that McCaffrey, it's tough. For Kyle's team specifically, it's even tougher when you have no other true running backs to go to outside of Charbonnet because Lloyd's inactive, Brooks is not playing, Bucky Irving, I mean, maybe, but if you see McCaffrey out on Monday, you're gonna have to scramble and either take that running back from San Fran, which I don't know who it would be because Elijah Mitchell's out for the year, or shift some things around. So I don't love that much for Kyle, but I mean both teams have obviously a path to victory just because Trey has nobody playing yet, but also has some solid pieces in A-Chain, Rashad White. His receivers are actually pretty solid. If Diggs carves out a big role in that offense, but I feel like the X factor on Kyle's team is the health of McCaffrey to close it out on a Monday night for sure. And for Trey, somebody I'm looking at is Zamir White. I'm intrigued by him. I don't know how much of the work he gets in that offense and how good that offense actually is going to be, but it's starting running back on a team that is unlikely to give the backup a good amount of carries. He kind of just is someone there to spell. So Zamir White, someone overall I'm intrigued by this year, but I feel like week one he could make a statement, and if that's the case, it makes Trey's team look a lot better to me.
Yeah, again, a lot of interesting things to look at for this game. What kind of role does the Miami backfield look like? A-Chain, Diggs' first game in Houston, Lamb finally getting into camp, doing what he can. But I think Kyle's obviously, like I said, I like Kyle's team a lot this year. Although I think Trey's team is pretty solid. Chase is, we'll see what he does, but Chase is really good. Evans, how I love my Evans. DJ Moore, Kincaid, I think is going to obviously get an expanded role in that Buffalo offense. You got CMC, Jaden Daniels could maybe run for a touchdown or two. I mean, Kyle's got a lot of firepower here. So, I mean, Zay Flowers getting 8, that's a very Zay Flowers game. I'm not a huge fan of him just because of that offense and everything. He's not a bad player by any means, but, you know, 10 to 12, 10 to 12, 10 to 12 is what you're kind of expecting from Flowers. So maybe a little underperforming there, but overall, I think Kyle still does take this one, but there's some interesting guys on Trey's side, and I'm looking at, you know, both benches, and they're probably making the right calls with who they got in the lineup right now. A lot of the other guys are kind of, maybe show me later guys. So overall, I think this is a really interesting one. It's going to be a fun one. It's projected to be close, but I do think Kyle probably takes it.
Yeah, fine. I would go Trey here. I feel like Trey's got the better end of things. Obviously, he hasn't had a player start yet, so we'll see. But I just feel like again here, there's a lot of overlap. That Cleveland Dallas game could be. I mean, obviously, it's the game that closes it out for anyone that's not Kyle. So for Trey, it's his last game of the week, and Jerome Ford, could make or break Kyle at that point. So
Yeah.
very interested. It's one of the few games that has a person with no one who has started yet, and we only have had 4 teams play. So that to me is it kind of
Yeah.
shows how much stock we have in those 4 teams, as a league.
Oh, sure. Especially Chiefs, Ravens. Yeah, definitely. Yep. Speaking of that, next game, I mean, it adds right into it. Peter's already off to a blistering start, 47 points, 25 of them courtesy from Lamar Jackson. Rice getting another really solid game, 13.8. I mean, for not scoring a touchdown, you can't really complain about that stat line. And Christian Watson, I mean, he had a catch or two, and good thing one of them was for a score. Otherwise, that would have been kind of a dud there. But yeah, I mean, you can't. If you're Peter, you got to be smiling heading into tomorrow's matchup. So, does Rob have a shot here against Peter? I know me and you both really liked Peter's team. I think we had
Yeah,
him. I had Peter as the number 1 team in the whole entire league. I had
yeah,
Chad as number 2. So I mean, Peter's team's solid, man, and it's already showing it.
yeah. I would agree. I mean, obviously, Rob has a shot. Being down 47 off rip is not great, but having 3 players have played. I mean, Kyler can get the 25, especially in the matchup against Buffalo. That both defenses aren't great. So it can prove to be a lot of points in that one, which in turn, gives James Conner the points as well. Uh, Obviously, the situation in San Fran with IU now settling in is very helpful for Rob's team because now you have Pickens and IU not on the same team. So obviously that's a big help for him. But yeah, I mean, obviously Peter's team is tough. It's going to be tough every week. These guys are consistent players. Looking at what if I were to look at what he had left, and I'm Rob, I'm still concerned. ETN, Robinson, Samuel, McBride, like those are
Yeah.
four solid players that haven't played yet, and you're already down almost 50. And then Josh Palmer, fine flex play. I feel like he's actually pretty safe since he's been in offense for a couple years now with Herbert, so he has that more of a rapport. And then the Cowboys against Cleveland, I mean, that's not a horrible defense. I mean, obviously any defense can go off, but Rob, I think on his side just is capping himself because he has two guys on his team that are on the pup, so aren't playing for a couple of weeks. I said that in the post draft show, but to have, I mean, Zeke is a high upside player. Herbert, you're not going to play him over Kyler, so I'm surprised he even drafted him when it came time. And then Algier, you're just kind of holding on to in case he carves out a bigger role. I was never a really big fan of Rob's team. Obviously, I put Rob at 10 in our power rankings post draft, and the trade he made makes his team a little bit more diverse, but not by much. So I still think that Peter takes this week, and he rightfully so. He's off to a hot start. But question I have for you, from what you saw yesterday, because I know you watched the game, when it comes to the Packers wide receivers, I guess first part of the question is, do you trust Christian Watson long term for the rest of the year, seeing what you saw now? And if Jordan Love is out for a bit, unfortunately for you, do you feel like that can be sustained? I guess success can be sustained with someone like I forget who's there, Malik
Malik
Willis
Willis. Yeah.
being the go to guy.
Oh, they're in trouble, man. If Jordan Love's really out, because Jordan Love, I mean, I'll say it first and foremost, he's obviously really good. I mean, I hate to say it, but he is. So if he's out as talented as those, and they're all really young in Green Bay, really young, talented receivers, Watson, Reed, Wicks, um, all of them. It's good. So it's if Love's out, they're in trouble. And I really wonder who carves out a role there because then Willis would have. I mean, he's probably been getting not many reps at all in training camp, so you'd have to think that he's got to start building roles with them. So real trouble. I would not feel confident with that at all if I was Peter. But at the same time, like I said, he does have Gus Edwards on his bench. Herbert might get. I could even see Smith and Jigba breaking out and actually having a pretty good year this year in Seattle as well. So as Lockett gets older and stuff like that, but I mean, we really could have the best team versus the worst team in the whole league right here. I mean, but I do think like I said, I think Rob's trade made sense for him because I do think, like you said, it gave him more depth. I think Aaron Jones could be a touchdown hog. I think James Conner we know is a touchdown hog, and then Kyler Murray's going to be running on the ground like he does, and Devontae. This team, he's with Pickens, Ayuk. So you know what? Rob's team's looking right now a little bit better than I thought it was. But Peter's team, I think, is the best team in the league, and he's already off to a good start. So I'm going to take Peter in this one. But just kind of looking Rob's team up and down, it doesn't look awful. I mean, Ayuk, Pickens, Devontae, Olave, and then you got touchdowns in Murray, Connor, and hopefully Jones. So tough first matchup, but Rob's team's not looking awful.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. On paper, Rob's team actually that does look a little bit better after that trade, because of the running back. I think he had to put in Zeke, and that was just two guys was
That would have been
Connor and
tough.
Zeke.
Yeah, that would
So
have been
like
tough.
that's hard to trust season long, but I think that trade made him look a lot better.
Yeah, even though he had to
So
give up the
yeah,
superstar. Yeah.
yep, I agree with Peter. I think Peter takes this one as well. From here we move on to your matchup that's on way against the division champion from last year, second place Dave, King of the Hill. Off to a decent start for both of you, obviously. Projected to go 108, 103, so you're projected to win here. Dave has had a QB go. You've had a running back go. You're down measly, not even 2 points.
Not bad.
Um, I'll let you start. How do you feel knowing that Hertz gave Dave 16, You didn't play Jordan Love. He kind of matched Hurts exactly. How do you feel after Pacheco's Thursday night, and then what you have left going?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, if that's what I can get out of Pacheco each week, which I think I can, that's what I'm expecting. I actually didn't love the pick when I got it. I was actually really hoping Derrick Henry would fall to me, but honestly, I'm all right with it. I think Pacheco could obviously be the more upside player this year for sure in that offense. So Hurts only getting 16. I'll take that. I'll take that. That's not an awful game, but for Jalen Hurts, you obviously want to see more of that 25-30 game performance. And I just didn't love this first matchup for Jordan Love in the first game. I'm not saying he couldn't win off, but call me a homer. I just, for some reason, like, we'll see. Could be totally wrong, but I do kind of like this first matchup for Caleb Williams against Tennessee. I think they might try to run the ball a little bit and keep him comfortable, but I could see him throwing a couple touchdowns and matching at least what Jordan Love did this week. So I like my matchup. I do. Obviously in the pregame power or in the preseason power rankings, I had myself seventh and I had Dave's team sixth. So I really think overall we're matched up pretty dang tight. And I think this is literally our maybe third or fourth year in a row playing each other in the first week of the year. I mean, it really is kind of crazy. We literally play each other the first week every single year. But I think this is pretty dang tight. I mean, Laporta Kittle, Godwin, Nico Collins, Tyreek Hill, Keenan Allen. I mean, there's a lot of and obviously I think I have the running back room there, but it'll be tight. It'll be tight. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I know that looking at it on paper, I obviously I weigh running backs heavier than anything else, just because they're few and far between for the most part. I mean, there are guys that you can guarantee get you points, like a Pacheco, a Brees Hall, even a Kenneth Walker. He's been pretty consistent throughout his career, so I do trust those guys more than a Kamara Pollard combination. Um, but I do like, again, it's the balance for you. The running backs you have, they're pretty solid. They're volume guys, and then receivers. While Keenan Allen isn't going to be the sexiest pick, you get a little stack there, and he's a pretty safe bet to get a couple catches every week. May not break them off, obviously, because he's not like a speedster type of guy, but that's why you have Tank Dell. That's exactly why you have Tank Dell. That's the guy, that home run hitter that you can count on for, if he's catching a ball for 45 yards, he's probably going to score. So I just there's more explosiveness there. Again, don't harp on Dave's team, because the Dave's team was decent for me at 8 in the power rankings post draft because of the combination of Tyreek Hill and Cooper Kupp. But I just don't love anything else here. So those two, just while they can win you a week, I feel like it's tough to combat the start you already have with Pacheco and what I think can be brought to the table by someone like a Brees Hall on Monday night, and obviously Kenneth Walker tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, and we'll see what McConkey's role kind of looks like in LA too. He's obviously riding McConkey high. His lone somehow, I'm surprised I haven't pointed this out yet. His lone charger on his team is Dave changing his ways. Could it be for the better? Could it be for the worse? If it goes bad this year, he's gonna have 7 on his team next year. So we'll see what happens. But all right, moving on to the next matchup. What do we got?
Yeah, closing us out is Kirk Oslanek and Dana, and Tucker in the waistband and Tyler. Tyler already had 35 to start the week. A very low scoring matchup here for both of them,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
I mean, someone's got to win. Not always, because we can tie. Very rarely, know we've seen one ever,
I
but
don't think so.
someone has to win.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, obviously you got Josh Jacobs. That's a pretty solid start, especially for not scoring a touchdown. The way that field was, obviously awful field conditions. You can't love Kelsey's start. Again, one game, not a big deal, but both Andrews and Kelsey kind of disappointing in that one. But yeah, Henry 10 touchdown. You like that? AJ Brown broke one off big like that, and I mean defense got him 4. So, but yeah, projected to kind of be low scoring again. If you're around that 96, 93 projection range, that means some of your guys probably aren't hitting exactly what you'd expect them to. I don't love Dane having Eckler in there. I really am not sure what role he has in Washington. Maybe he can get lucky and get a few pass catching touchdowns this year, but I don't know how much he's in on running situations. Odunze first game ever as a pro. Again, I love Odunze. I love the Bears. I love their wide receiver room. I'm sipping the Kool-Aid, but I just don't know how quick that's going to be. Marvin Harrison, how quick is that going to be? You'd hope right away, but first game ever. You just don't know. So overall, I can actually see weirdly. I'm gonna tell you this. Spoiler alerts. I can see Indy beating Houston week 1. I know that might not be a popular pick, but at Indy, again, we haven't seen a whole lot of Anthony Richardson. He's never played, I don't think, with Jonathan Taylor yet because Jonathan Taylor was holding out or whatever. Wasn't it the first few weeks last year? It was something was going on or he didn't play. I don't think Anthony Richardson's ever played with Jonathan Taylor yet. So watch out for that upset, Indy over Houston. But anyway, overall, I actually do like Tyler's team more in this one. I think he's off to a solid start with everything considered, and I think he's going to keep. Although T. Higgins now, I don't know if you see that, doubtful. So I don't know who he's going to put in for there. Maybe Jordan Addison, maybe a Jamal Williams or Javante Williams from Denver, but we'll see.
Yeah, yeah, definitely agree. I feel like both guys have dudes who are can pop off. I just don't love it for Tyler and what he got from the players, not only the players that he played, because AJ Brown was spectacular, but like Derrick Henry, if you don't score a touchdown there on that first drive,
Yeah.
you're not looking great. I mean, 46 yards is kind of crazy for Derrick Henry.
Especially with how
So
close
I
the game
mean,
was, you know.
yeah, I figured he'd be more involved, but we saw a lot of Justice Hill, and that to me it wouldn't scare me off of Henry by any means week 1, but it's just you have to temper your expectations now at that point, and it's not
They might be playing
the
the long
greatest
game
look.
with him. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm okay with it. Obviously, if I'm Tyler, I'm not too concerned. I mean, 10 points from your RB, you're pretty happy, especially when AJ Brown picks it up the way he did.
Yeah.
But it's
Brock
just
Bowers' first game. That'll be kind of
yeah,
interesting. They
there's a
still do have
lot.
Michael Mayer there too, the Notre Dame shout out. So
Yeah, there's a lot there going on, and I feel like that may be what does Tyler in this week because he has to now uncertainty in Bowers. Higgins is unlikely to play. I did see that. So again, you're having to put in like Javante Williams, Jordan Addison, like those guys will do the trick. They won't be as stellar as Higgins, but that also goes to like kind of hurts Burrow in other matchups. If you don't have Higgins and Chase, who are you throwing the ball to? Like that
right.
offense, if you don't have Higgins and Chase, looks pretty pedestrian. So I don't really know how that works.
Maybe there needs to be
And
some money thrown on New England week 1 too, dude. I'm telling you,
yeah,
Cincinnati always gets off to some just real shitty
yeah.
starts, dude.
I mean, yeah, I might have to just kind of look at that myself. But yeah, looking at it, I just think Dana's team has the ability to just have dudes who are consistent and a Montgomery. Stroud will be fine. JJ and Marvin Harrison, those are the guys that you're really relying on now coming into the week. And while the flexes aren't the greatest, and Eckler and Odunze, I think those are still guys that can be serviceable.
Yeah.
Um,
He's
I
got some
just,
big poppers like JJ and
yeah,
Marvin Harrison. I could see them both, on certain weeks both dropping 30 and winning you a week.
yeah, those guys are definitely not the same receiver, but the same caliber of receiver. And it's kind of crazy just to say about Marvin, who's played not a single snap in the
I
NFL,
know.
but he's coming in
He's
so
good,
highly
man.
touted.
Yeah.
So, like, those are two guys that, yeah, you're very happy to have on your squad. But I still think that even though Tyler has decisions to make with that flex spot, more than likely, he's done enough so far to kind of hold on to this win. So I would go with Tyler to start off at 1-0.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tyler still gets it done here. I like Josh Allen. I think that Arizona Buffalo game could be pretty damn high scoring itself. DeAndre Swift, Amari Cooper, again, solid. Who knows what Bowers does in his first game? Robinson in Washington. We'll see again what that running back room looks like. But overall, I agree. Wouldn't be shocked if Dana pulled it off. Like I said, he's got some heavy hitters. He does. But overall, I do like Tyler's team more. So yeah, that kind of looks at our matchups. Again, we don't have a lot to go off of. It's everyone 0-0. No one's won yet. No one's
Yeah,
lost yet. Obviously, as we get more weeks in, we're going to talk more trades. Eventually, we'll talk about like how big the matchups are for division standings and playoff rankings. But it's kind of a crapshoot right now, right?
it definitely is. I mean, we don't know much about anybody's team. These players that we've drafted based off of just past seasons or kind of what we've heard are now, starting off and either not fizzling out, but putting up duds, um, or kind of cooking it up. Some maybe a boom, some maybe a doom. I don't know why that's a big thing these days because of the stupid Costco guys, but
Right.
Uh, that's just what it is. But before we close things out, I do have one question to pose
Oh, here we go.
to you. Week one, obviously, we've seen two games played.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one player for the remainder of the slate that's going to have the biggest fantasy impact as a whole, I guess, and surprise us in the league, who do you think that's going to be?
Like a player that I think is kind of like, maybe in the middle right now that's going to kind of
Yeah,
break out. Ooh. What? I think people are still sleeping on Alvin Kamara this year. I think he went lower in drafts than people than he usually goes. I think he's usually a higher pick, and I get he's getting older, but that Saints offense is going to need a lot of help. I'm not saying the Saints are going to be good, but I think he's a little underrated this year. I really do. I think Alvin Kamara, if you got him, if it just didn't work out for me in the drafts and where I was at, but I'm going to go with Alvin Kamara on the Saints. What about you?
yeah. I'm going to go with Terry McLaurin. I think Terry McLaurin's someone who's undervalued this year. Rookie quarterback has his
Yeah.
number one guy. I feel like every year we think that Terry's going to be okay, and he does okay. But I think this year he actually proves to the league that he can be much better than he has
How
been.
about these two? How about these two? They're both kind of similar in a sense. Who do you trust more as a fantasy quarterback going forward? Like who would you put more stock in? Anthony Richardson or Jaden Daniels?
Going Jaden.
Yeah.
I'm going Jaden. Anthony Richardson. I've just seen he has the tools obviously and the build to do it, but I just think that Jaden in the system he was in last year, coming off a Heisman, trophy win,
Sure.
there's just more there. The tools are probably better. The offense, while it's not that great, there's pieces around him that he can be successful. And I would think I would just trust him as a passer more than Richardson. So I feel like that's
Yeah.
more important.
Oh yeah, for sure. All right. I don't know if you got your power rankings ready from the post draft. Mine have not really changed. The trades have not changed it too much for me. Outside of maybe moving Rob up a spot or two, but overall, okay, I got Peter as the number one team, Chad 2, Jordan 3, Tyler 4, Kyle 5, Dave 6, myself 7, Trey 8, Krim 9. I'll go Rob 10, Dane 11, and Jay 12. Although Rob's team, like I said, when I kind of looked at it on paper a little bit more, as long as he doesn't have any injuries, he might have done a little bit there. But those are mine. So overall, I do think Peter is the best team in the league. I think he is my, I guess, quote unquote champion. We said that in the post draft show. But just for anyone listening and tuning in one more time, Krim, what are your power rankings?
Haven't changed for me yet because we haven't seen too much. I got Peter 1, Chad 2, yourself 3, myself 4. Oh, sorry, Jordan 4, other Jordan, the cooler one, which is me, 5, Trey 6, Kyle 7th, Dave 8th, Tyler 9th, Rob 10th, Dana 11th, and Jay 12th.
Yeah, and remember we were exact same on Division One in our post show, and then completely different on Division Two. So it'll be kind of fun to see how that works out. But this was our week one preview show. Obviously not a whole lot to go off of, but just speculation. And last year we both had Tyler as the number one team, so that went beautifully for him. But other than that, any last thoughts, Krim?
No, excited to see the Panthers play again. Again, 0-0. I'm excited to see if Bryce can pick things up. The whole new O
3 weeks from
line.
now. Oh,
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it can go poorly very quickly, but I
yeah.
have to be optimistic, at least
Hey.
right now. We don't have this guy anymore. We traded him for essentially nothing. But Hubbard, could be a guy, could be a stud these first 4 weeks. So I'm excited for them. I'm excited for, to kind of actually get things going, make things official. Uh, it's football's back, baby. I mean,
Oh yeah.
it's been a little bit of a lull out of the baseball playoffs and fantasy. It's only really been four of you guys, looking out for that stuff. So that's kind of, and
Yeah.
the Jays suck. So it kind of it's been a little bit of a not caring moment. I'll care for now. Again, week 3, week 4. Hopefully, I'm still caring. But if we're 0-4, at that point, I'm just here for the progression of things. So I'm excited.
Oh yeah, same man. Football's back. I'm excited. It's probably the most excited I've been as a Bears fan in a while. But can't get my hopes up too much as we've seen before. But go Bears. All right. Thanks guys for tuning in. Year 10. Excited. Let's get at it. Good luck to your teams. May the force be with you. See you later.